Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Megillah Daf Hey. We are going to begin on the very top of Hamadaf by the top line. Rab Megillah Bismana. When it comes to the Megillah being read in its proper time, Rashi says Biyodal on the 14th. That's the obligation on that day. That's when Purim is. I'll call Yachid Yachid on every individual. So even an individual needs to read the Megillah on that day. Afil b'yachid kol karin bo v'ika pirsum nes. That's pirsuming nisa, even though you're individual. Back in the Gemara. So again, Omer Rabbi Megillah b'zmana karin oisa afil b'yachid. Even an individual. Shalom b'zmana. For example, Rashi says kfarim hamakdimin le'machnisa, that they'll read as early as the 11th. So in this situation, the Gemara says that it's dafka basara. You need, in order to be able to have pirsum nes, because this is not the typical day of Purim, it's not the 14th, so therefore you need a minyan. Rabasi Omer ben bezman ben shel bezman basara. Even on Purim itself on the 14th, you need a minyan. Havi uvda. So this actual situation took place. So chashle Rab l'had Rabasi, and he was siding toward that which Rav Asi said. As Rashi v'chazer al asar v'kibtzon, that he went back and he gathered a minyan. Umiyom Rav Hachi v'ayim Rabbi Yehuda b'Rei Rabbi Shmuel bar Shilas mishmid Rab Purim shechol yos b'Shabbos. Let's say Purim falls out on Shabbos, so erev Shabbos zmanom. Then Friday is its time. So for Gemara, erev Shabbos zmanom, v'ho Shabbos zmanom hu. The 14th, that is the day of Purim. Of course, we can't read, so therefore we make it earlier. Elulav hachinkamer shlo bizmanam kizmanam. What does that mean? Mazmanam on the day of fil biyachid. So shlo bizmanam fil biyachid. Even shlo bizmanam it's a yachid. You don't need to have a minyan, even if let's say it's on a different day. Where it says low. Certainly, when it comes to Mikra Megillah, we need 10. Elamai erev Shabbos zmanam lafukim Rabbi di omer hoyel v'nidchu ayoros min kaimin nidchu yimachanisa hakamashim de erev Shabbos zmanam. We mentioned that since you can't read on Shabbos, so maybe the cities, once we're already pushing it off, let them read on Thursday. So no, the din is that they should read on Friday. Even though, again, we mentioned it was a machlokas over there, but that perhaps is all it's come to teach us. So we also learned this Mishnah before. Ezuhi Ir Gadol, what's considered to be a large city. Kol sheish ba asar batulanim. If it has these 10 people, as Rashi said in the previous daf, that they are specifically designated to be staying in the Beis HaKnesses and the Beis HaMedrash, so that at any point, if there's a need for a minyan, Hashem would never get upset because there's always 10 available. So Pachlis Mekan Harzek Kfar. Less than that, it's considered like a village. These are the lists that we will do things before and not afterwards, because it's something which is rejoiceful. Purim, so therefore, when something happy, we can make it early. We could have the reading on the 11th. However, is actually question TB24. There's a list of 4 things that we will not do earlier, but we would do afterwards if we can't do it on the day itself. One is Atzi Kohanim, which has to do with the wood. Says Rashi, Im Cholios b'Shabbos, the day in which, as we saw at the end of Masechtas Tainis, that there were people that designated and dedicated wood for the Beis HaMikdash. So because of that, even though we have wood available now, we still, in their honor, we'll always allow them to donate this wood, and also we make it a special day, as is mentioned in Megillah's Tainis. So if, let's say, that day falls on a Shabbos, we push it off to Sunday. Furthermore, with Tisha B'Av, so to when it comes, if Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbos, we know we don't fast on Shabbos. Says Rashi, V'hu adin Yud Zayin b'Tammuz, Asar b'Teves. It's not just Tisha B'Av, it's all the public fasts. Says Rashi, V'hai denaka Tisha B'Av, Mishum dehuchpulu b'Tzaros. Everyone's fasting on Tisha B'Av. So there's some people that don't fast, and also there's a sheet that if you want to, you could fast. If you don't have to, depending if, let's say, we still have Zeir upon us. Okay, so nonetheless, Tisha B'Av. chagiga, and as Rashi says, imchal Yom Tov b'Shabbos. If Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos, deichen shalmi chagiga l'machar. So we'll push off the bringing of one of the karbanos. In addition to the carbon ola and the carbon simcha, we also have a shalmi chagiga. So instead of bringing it on Shabbos, you can bring it the next day. Shahar yeshla tashumin kol shiva v'chein hakel. So when it comes to hakel, in which on the Motzi Yom Tov of after Shemitah, on Sukkot, after Sukkot, so all the Klais will gather together, as it's mentioned, Parshas Vayelech, and Anashim Atav. But if that falls on Shabbos, we say, let it be done on a Sunday. What's the problem? Why can't they just go? So Rashi says, Bataf b'Shams I efsher, ma'virno yisrael l'machar. The problem is you're going to have to carry your child on Shabbos, and therefore because of that, we allow Hakel to instead take place on Sunday. Macharin v'lo makdimin. Now, avapi she'amru makdimin v'lo machirin. Even though we said when it comes to Yom Achnisa, we make it earlier, mutorin behesem v'tainis u'matanos avyonim. We allow a person to be able to fast as well as eulogize, as well as give matanos levyonim. Fine. Rabbi Yehuda Amos sign this we saw in the beginning of Masechta. When do we have this heter for the kfarim? Only makom shenechnasim v'shenim chamishim, if they come in to the marketplace on Monday and Thursday. If they don't come in, then there's no heter for them to read except on Yud Daled. Now Tana asar batalonim shebeis hachnesses. As we said, the asar batalonim, the ones that are found in the shul. As we quoted again, Rashi once again says the same Gemara, that kivan sheba hakadosh baruch hu beis hachnesses ve'enim maitzis shamasara, then immediately he gets upset, gets angry. So my timer, why can't we make these things earlier? So Amar Rabbi Abba Amar Shmuel Amar Kra V'lo Yavor. When it comes to on the contrary, when it comes to the reading the Megillah, we make it earlier, not later, because the pasuk is V'lo Yavor. So it can't be after Shushan Purim. It has to be before Purim, which is up until early as Yud Aleph. How do we know, this Gemara is elsewhere as well, that we don't count days for years, rather we go days to months? So months to years. For months we count for years. We don't count days for years. Rabbanan de Kisri Mishum Rabbi Abba Imr B'Dain Mechashvin Shoyis LaChadashim. So too we don't calculate hours for months, rather we do days for months. Shnemer Ad Chodesh Yomim Atem Mechashav LaChadashim V'Yato Mechashav Shoyis LaChadashim. The pasuk says beferish it's days and not hours for months. When it comes to these things, we do it afterwards and not before. So Tisha B'Av, we don't want to make tragic things. We don't want to bring them earlier. We don't bring and invite tragedy. We push them off as far as possible. It's interesting. Here it says, the reason of Hakel is because it has not yet reached its time. So there's no Chiyuv yet. It's at a specific time. So before, it hasn't reached its Zman Chiyuv. Now again, according to Rashi, it sounds, V'chein Hakel, Rashi said, Hakel sa'am shahaya b'shana rishayna, etc. It says, V'chol chayavin level havias tapam, they have to bring their children, V'taf, including children, it was Shabbos I efsher. Ma'virno sol machar, and that's why it's pushed off later on. And then Rashi also says, the Gemara quotes in Yerushalmi that says the lav din l'b'shabbos b'minei habima. Could it non bima shel eitz hayu oisin l'melech ba'azara. They would bring this bima for the king, the Yishalin, who'd sit there. Umafarchinan hasam v'l abdam esmol, so do it the day before. Meshan dechikule azara, because we don't want the azara to be all clogged up for that. So there's different explanations other than this poshut reason found in the Gemara. The question is, why does Rashi have to quote other tirutzim when the Gemara says beferish, but nonetheless this is Lomat Zman Chiyuv Ayu. Tana. Now Chagiga v'chol Zman Chagiga. When it comes not only to carbon chagiga, the shama chagiga that we push off, that we don't do on that day, the whole zman chagiga, macharin, we also push off. Now the question is, what does that language mean? What does it mean, the whole zman chagiga? Now, b'shama chagiga, the mikla b'shabata macharin l'basa the shabta. It makes sense. When it comes to shalmi chagiga, since you don't have to bring it today because there is tashlumin, you are able to bring it another day, so therefore we can push that off. Well, zman chagiga mahi. What does it mean? The zman chagiga. What exactly is that referring to? So Gemara gives three answers. When it comes to bringing the shama chagiga on Shabbos, so oilus re'iyah, as well as the bringing the carbon oil, which is completely consumed on the mizbech, which therefore is no element of lechem. So afil be yomtiv. According to this shita, he says that you could even be brought on yomtiv. Can be brought on yomtiv. The zman chagiga macharin. However, zman chagiga macharin money. So who's that like? Beishami did not. Beishami omrim mavin shalom and beyomtiv and mavin saimchen lehen. Of a low oilos. According to Beishami, an ola cannot be brought. So one shot is that this is referring to the din of Beis Shammai. They can't bring an oil, says Rashi. In mavin the sabi lachem v'lo gevaya. That the only time it's allowed is lachem, but not something which is for Hashem. And a carbon oil is completely for Hashem. That's the reason why Beis Shammai says an oil cannot be brought, but a shlomim can be brought, just ain't seimchen lehan. You just don't do smicha. This is talking about specifically on Yom Tov. Beis Hill Omer Mavin Shlom B'Oyos was Seimchen Alehen. He says no, you could bring everything. You can even do smicha. It's not a problem at all. Doesn't it say lechem? So Rashi says Umani Memekam lechem v'lo nachrem, that you can do shchita for yourself, but it doesn't come to exclude l'gvoya. No, l'gvoya you could bring, but it's saying l'nachrem. It cannot be brought, not be done for a non-Jew. So that's one answer. Rabbi Omer Chagiga calls man Chagiga Macharin. What does that mean? Tvei lo. For more than that, no. It's just coming to tell you that this is the time frame that you could do so. Did not. You have to the entire time to be able to bring the Shalmei Chagiga. If you didn't bring on the first day, you have the entire holiday to do it, even the last day. However, of our regel, let's say the holiday passed and you did not bring it, so you're not obligated in its achrayus, which means that at this point you've lost the opportunity to bring it. Rav Ashi Omer, a third explanation, the chiddush is even on Shavuos. The Chad Yoima Machirin, even though Shavuos, which is unlike Pesach and Sukkot, it's only a one-day holiday, nonetheless we still push it off. So on this, the question is that it's how is that acceptable? It's beyond the holiday. That if Shavuos on Shabbos, Shem Tavuch Achar Shabbos, that they would do the Shechita on Sunday. Says Rashi. Mesechtes Chagiga. There's a machlokas regarding Shavuos Shechol Yos Be'erev Shabbos, the following on Friday. Beis Shammai Omrim Yom Tavuach Shel Atzeres Achar Shabbos. Doesn't matter that Shavuos is on Friday, so you do it on Sunday, 2 days late. Beis Shammai L'Tamayhu Di'amri Olos Ein Makriben B'Yom Tov, because he holds you can't bring an oil on Yom Tov. Hilkach O Yakrivu Ad La'achar Shabbos. So therefore, you cannot bring it until after Shabbos, until on Sunday. Beis Hill Omrim Ein Lo Yom Tavuach. Ein sarich lahamtin. It means you don't need to wait l'yom tavuach. Shahashlamim ba'olos kareibim b'yom tiv. You can bring them on Yom Tiv. Umoidim matzer shechleis b'Shabbos. However, if it's on Shabbos, that's Yom Tiv. But on Shabbos, shin oilos hari'iyah b'sham chagiga kareibim b'Shabbos. Even Beis Hill says you don't bring them on Shabbos. The whole machlokas is by Yom Tiv. Mantina l'yom tavuach. Shel karbanos hayom lamachar Shabbos alma yesh tashlumin latzeres. It comes to teach us the chiddush that there is a tashlumin on Shavuos, even though it's afterwards. So if Shavuos would fall on a Friday, it's a machlokas. Do you do it on that day or the Sunday? Beis Shammai says Sunday because lachem v'lo gavoa. Beis Hillel says no, you can do it on Friday because lachem is only lahoitzi, is only lafuki nachrim, not gavoa. You could bring a carbon shlamim or a carbon oila, and you can do smicha. It's not a problem. Okay, question 8. So, mahu zman chagigu mai ka'omer. So what is that, the pshat? So there's 3 answers. Either, it's Lefi Shitas Beis Shammai, it's referring to Olos Re'iyah. It's coming to tell you that even on Yom Tov, you're not allowed to be able to bring a carbon ola. Because again, as we said, second shot, it means chagiga, and it's coming to tell us that if a person didn't bring the carbon, you could bring it the whole time, but only up until the zman acharein, until the last day, but no further. And the third shot could be that it's talking about Shavuos, that the din is that we do push it off to Sunday, even though it's the day after Shavuos. Shavuos falls on Shabbos, you can still bring the carbon on Sunday. And that's a feel according to Shita Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai only argue about Yom Tov. How do you darshan the word lechem? But in Shabbos it cannot be done. Okay. Last line. Rabbi nothing to Purim. So Rabbi planted a tree on Purim. Okay, sounds like a nice thing to do, but maybe you're not allowed to do it. Especially, maybe you're not supposed to do work on Purim. He also washed b'kroina shel tzipori kronos. Rashi says it's b'yom hashuk before Hesed. He did it public. B'shas hilach kronos, at the time that people bring out their wagons on Shivas B'Tammuz. So he was bathing on Shivas B'Tammuz. And he also wanted to remove Tisha B'Av, and the Chachamim said, no, you can't do that. So we have to understand all these different things. I'm going to follow up Rabbi Abba Bar Zavda, Rabbi Lokachai Mais, that's not what happened. El Tisha B'Av Shechol Yos B'Shabbos Avi. He didn't just want Tisha B'Av to be gone completely. Make sure we understand the entire situation. What happened actually was Tisha B'Av was on Shabbos that year. And therefore we had to push off to Sunday. So the truth is that they said, you know what, once it's already being pushed off to Sunday, let's just get rid of it completely. The Chacham did not agree on that. And we quoted him by saying 2 is better than 1. What does that mean? It's pasuk in Koheles. So Rashi says, "Ilu shemata hayisa toya b'davar." I would have made a mistake. Achshav toivli shulamatani ha'emes. Now that you told me the truth, now I feel more comfortable. Let's look at this Taisus. Kasha, how would we even have a halamina? The Hatana the Rebbe Hoya Roitzel Akar Tisha B'Av Gamri. No, he just wants to get rid of Tisha B'Av. No, we're not going to celebrate that anymore. But Amrinan, which says Masechtas Tainus, as we saw at the end of the Masechta, Kol Oich V'Shois B'Tisha B'Av Ve'enu Roy B'Nechama Shol Yishlayim. You have to fast on Tisha B'Av. V'od the Ha'ein based in Yochel Vatal Divri. Based in Chaver Imkin Gadol Himena B'Chachma Minyan. We also saw that at the beginning of this Masechta. You can't just uproot a gezerah. So Meir Shlomer says Taisus the little Ratzel Akra Ella Mechumer Sheishbo Yosim Shartaniyos. In the Havim, we thought maybe it will just be removed certain stringencies and it'll be like the other fasts. Inami Meir Shlomer the Ratzel Akra Mitshi Lakabo Basiri. Maybe he didn't want it to be on the 9th. He thought maybe the 10th is better. As the Gemara also at the end of Masechtas Tainus says, Il Habi Hasam Kaviti Basiri. I would have made Tisha B'Av not on Tisha B'Av, would have been on the 10th of Av, because that's when the majority of the Churban, the Beis HaMikdash burned. We do it on the 9th because the Gemara says that we go busser the beginning of the burning. So, so there's a few things we have to understand what Rabbi did. First of all, he planted a tree on Purim. How could he have done that? But Tani Rav Yosef, Simcha, Mishnah, Yomtiv, Simcha, Malam, so you're not allowed to eulogize on Purim. Mishnah, party, Malam, Sha'asir B'Tainis, not to fast. Yomtiv, Shalamid, Sha'asir B'Sis Malacha. Apparently, one is not allowed to do work on Purim. So how is it possible that he planted a tree? That's work. Rebbe Bar Beis Havi. Rebbe was supposed to celebrate on the 14th. He planted on the 15th on Shushan Purim. But he lived in Tveria, and that's a walled city. There's a walled city. So then he should have actually been celebrating Purim on the 15th. Okay, El Rebbe bar Chameser Havi. You're right, because he lived in Tveria. He was on the 15th. The Chinata bar Beisar Havi, and when he planted on the 14th, so that was allowed. Is it so true and so obvious that Tveria counts as a walled city? Chizkiah read on the 14th and the 15th when he was in Tveria. Why? Because he wasn't sure. So how are we so sure? Rabbi says, okay, Chizkiah had that doubt. Rabbi thought for sure that Tveria was a walled city. Therefore, he only did it on the 15th. That's why he was able to plant on the 14th. Mishari, just because it's pashut that the 15th is I'm supposed to read. So is it so pashut that you can read on the that you can plant on the 14th? Megillah's tainis Eis Yom Arba Aser Eis Yom Chamisha Aser Yomi Puri Nun the Lo Misa Behind. We're not supposed to have a hesped. The Yom Rava Lo Nitzrocha El Aseres Shel Zeb Zev Shel Zeb Zeb. Not only if you celebrate the 14th, you can also do it on the 15th. If you're celebrating the 15th, you can't do it on the 14th. So we see it's also behesped on both days. So how can you plant a tree? So okay. So how do you mean behesped of a tinus of a malacha yom echad v'sulo? It's true. Maybe when it comes to a hesem and tinus, that you have to observe both of those days, that you cannot have a fast and you cannot have a hesped. However, malacha can be done on the other day that you don't celebrate. Eini v'ho rav chazil hu garvid habi koshadi kisne bepuria velati veloit samach kisne. He was planting flax and he cursed him and all of a sudden didn't grow. So you're not allowed to do it. He says, yeah, but hasam bar yom habi. He did it on his day. Let's say it was the 14th. And that he celebrated Purim and he was planting on the 14th. That's not the case over here. So that's one explanation. Rabba Bereda Rabba Aimer, no. Maybe it's talking about the day itself. And again, he only was makabel upon himself hesped and tinus, but not malacha. However, it doesn't mention in the pasuk the second time Yom Tov. So therefore, there is this element of not having to make it as a Yom Tov that's asur b'siyas malacha. So then why did he curse this person if in fact there's not a problem, there's no isser b'siyas malacha? So why did he curse him? Devarim hamutarim v'acherim nogu behen isser. This is referring to some havi. So this is something in which was mutter technically. However, other people were noigit as an isser, and therefore the Rabbi will nohug. However, in his city, they didn't have that minhag, and therefore in his city, in Tveria, people did malacha, it was no big deal. However, this other person was in a city where malacha was not allowed, and therefore the fact that he did it, he was cursed. The Hebrew say him a third answer. Olam nohug, really he's noig that he doesn't do malacha. So the question is, how did he plant a tree? It's not planting which is a malacha, it's planting for simcha is allowed. Kiditnan. If let's say all these different days came and you were an answer and the rain hasn't come, so you have to do other things to step up our game. So we minimize our business transactions, our plantings and building, and also engagements and marriages. Vatana Allah, binyan shel simcha, netiya shel simcha. Doesn't mean you can't build a house if you need a house to live, or you plant a tree for food. However, if it's for joyous purposes, that's not allowed then. However, for Purim, it's the opposite. It is allowed. Ezu binyan shel simcha zeh habayna beis chasnus b'noi. Person builds a house for his child who's getting married. Ezu hi netiya shel simcha zeh hanotea avorniki shel malachim. Avorniki shel malachim is a special, is brought down in Masechta Shabbos as well, in Erevin, that it was a special shaded area which kings would use to be comfortable. Gufa. So we said already that when it came to Tveria, it wasn't so clear. He was unsure. Therefore, he read on the 14th and the 15th. Was it walled city or not? No, mi masafkale, mills to the Tveria. Is it really such a doubt? But the pasuk says, "V'arei mivtsar hatsodim ser v'chamas rakas v'kineris." It talks about these walled cities. V'kaimelon rakas zu Tveria. And we'll talk about why it's called Rekas or Rakas, that This is Tveria. So Tveria, the pasuk says Beferish is a walled city. So what was his doubt? Hainu time in Masafkale. Mishum dechad gisa shuridi yamahabas. That one side there was water. That's not a wall. This side the Asher lo choma. V'lo shur igert saviv prat l'Tveria shema chamaisa. So when it comes to the Bati Richaima, Rashi says that you don't count Tveria. Why? El mukefes batim smuches zuluzu. Houses can be like walls right next to each other. The chomos chitzono shalbatim, and the outer houses nasus chaimul ir v'hainu shur iger. That's what it's referring to, that they're all like connected. So it says beferish that this is not acceptable. Prat l'Tveria shiyam chomasa shayam shalah hi chomasum etzad echad. Because there's water on one side, that's what Tveria is. It's built next to the water, so on one side is water. So by Bati Rechoma, that doesn't count. So there shouldn't be a suffix at all. So this is the whole point. You're right. When it comes to Bati Rechoma, it's definitely not a walled city. Kika Masafkele Indian Mikra Megillah. Why? My prozim and my mukafim. The question is, what is a walled city? What is considered to be an exposed city? Tiksibi Gabi Mikra Megillah Mishum Dahani Megala Vahani Lo Megala Vahanami Megalia. Is it because it's opened up? Or it's closed, so this is open on one side. Delma mishum dahani miganu bahani lo miganu bahonami migana mishum hachim esavkale. It has to do with protection. So the fact that you have this huge body of water on one side, even though you don't have a wall, that also is a form of protection because it's much harder to be able to get into that city to destroy it, and therefore perhaps that does count when it comes to Mikra Megillah. Ravasi kari Megillah b'Hutzel. He read in the city Hutzel ba'ar beis v'chameisar. Again, he also had a doubt when it came to this city. Masafkele yimu kamascham mimos yishu ben nunhi ilo. Ikid di aimer amar Ravasi hay Hutzel the beis bin Yomin mukamascham mimos yishu ben nunhi. That in fact wasn't a suffix when it came to this. Okay, we'll stop here. Let's see a couple questions. Question 8 we saw. All right, let's move on. Question, let's see, TA 23. Ha'im Tveria Nikras Mukefas Chaimel Inin Bati Ari Chaima? The answer is no. Mahem study Hasavik Im Nikras Mukefas Chaimel Inin Megillah? Again, because it's open on one side with water. So is it because it's open, so it's not considered like a walled city, or is it protects the city and therefore it does count? TB 24. Actually, I only got 2 of the 4. It didn't tell us in the questions how many to get, but we said it was Hakel. When it comes to Tisha B'Av, here I am with 2 again. Hakel, Tisha B'Av, Atzi, Kohanim, and Chagiga. Okay, one last question. I'm surprised this question was not asked. Question 13. There's a 2021 question. Omer Rabbi Nata Natiyah B'Purim. Heicha Nata Ha'ein Ois Malach B'Purim. How can you have planted? You're not allowed to plant on Purim. So one shot. This is question 13. One is either he was again in Tveria, which is on the 15th, and he planted on the 14th, or he held that Mitzad HaMinig, there was no Isser to do Malacha on Purim, so he allowed it. Or he said, Afim Nagu Mikol Makam Lita Natiyah Shel Simcha. Even if it is Asr, he planted a Natiyah Shel Simcha, that's what was allowed.